Hi, I'm Kamala Loscocco. I'm a co-owner of Ricky's Hot Stuff.
And I am Ricardo Monroy. I am the other owner of Ricky's Hot Stuff.
And Ricky's Hot Stuff creates unique and flavorful hot sauces in small batches. Our sauces are inspired by the immigrant culinary experience and a playful approach to combining ingredients. If you're craving your own special sauce, we also provide private label services and will create a bespoke sauce just for your restaurant, company, or special event.
All right, I'm giggling because were you reading off of something?
I need notes sometimes. I get nervous.
I was laughing. I go, I think she's reading something. What is that all about? She does this all the time.
This is my teleprompter.
I love it. Hello, it was a pleasure to meet you. Okay, so Ricardo, you're easy. I go, wait, can you say your name once again?
Oh yeah, Ricardo.
No, not Ricardo. Ricardo, your name was easy. Wait, so you said it so fast. Like, what is your name?
Ricardo?
No, not Ricardo. No, you, young lady. What's?
Oh, Kamala.
Kamala. Okay, because I was like, you said it. I'm like, wait, what? And I'm like, does she have the name of the Vice President of the United States of America? What?
Sure do.
Let's talk about that for a second, because throughout your life, you had to probably tell people like, I go, what? What's your name? Huh? And now you're walking on water, baby. You are walking on water.
Yep. For the first time, I can actually say that people know how to pronounce my name. I think some people still inadvertently will mispronounce it, but for the most part, everyone is happy to be like, oh, I actually know how to say your name now.
Isn't that awesome? I mean, like, what a perfect time to live, huh? What a perfect time to live.
What a beautiful time to be alive. Agreed.
Kamala and Ricardo, it is a pleasure to have you on the podcast. Thank you very much for saying yes. I always love it when people say yes to my random email of, hey, do you mind being on the podcast? I always want people to understand that a business doesn't just start from like, oh my goodness, great. Like I love using a quote that my mother says. She goes, you know, that Facebook, it just came out of nowhere. I'm like, that Facebook didn't just come out of nowhere, Mom. Amazon didn't just come out of nowhere. There was work behind it. There are people behind it. And so I always say, like, let's get to know the people behind the business, behind the innovation of something. And so before we even start talking about the company and how it developed, let's talk about the both of you. Where did you come from? So tell me the story of little Kamala and little Ricardo. Where are you from? And how did you guys meet? Let's just get it to that point where, what countries are you from? And where did you guys meet? And I will interject, but let's just start from there.
Please do. Why don't you go first?
All right. So I am originally from Guatemala. I've been here in Boston for 8 years. I'm an immigrant, obviously, and being an immigrant all my life. Before coming here to the US, I was living in Switzerland. I moved to Europe and I wanted, I always been I consider myself an artist since I'm a little kid. I used to be a caricaturist, a portrait, illustrator. That's today what I do still. I'm a chef, and I love cooking, making sauces, and traveling around the world, go to live to different places.
Already I'm gonna pause, okay? Because you went so quickly, you kind of like went so quickly that you were like going right into the sauce. No, my friend. Let's get back there. Guatemala. One of the countries I would love to go to one day. I mean, mind you, the world is so small, but yet so big that there's so many places I want to go to. Guatemala it's so enriched in the foods, the coffees, the culture, the music. There's so much there.
I'm drinking coffee right now.
I noticed that. I did notice that because, and again, and in other countries, coffee is drunk in a glass, where it's like it's so nice and so refined. You're getting the taste of it. What age did you leave, and why did you leave? And tell me about you, like family, friends. Like, what do they think about the way that you've been traveling around the world?
Well, they always knew I was gonna leave. There was a small picture. There's a picture when I'm a little kid, maybe 3 years old, where I have like a luggage next to me, and I'm dressed up like as a traveler. And I always dreamed about living somewhere else that was not my neighborhood. Mm-hmm. And I had that I always wanted to live for some reason, not in a bad way, but it's just like I wanted to know more people, different places, ask myself that question, how will it be to live somewhere else? Yeah.
You even like recreated that experience for yourself. So he moved to Antigua and he was actually living in a hostel for a while. And you were surrounded by travelers. It was almost like a way to.
So as a Guatemalan,
by staying,
you cannot, not many people want you around as a Guatemalan citizen, So when I was like 18, I moved out of my house. I told my grandma, I grew up with my grandparents. I told her like, hey, you told me when I'm 18, I'm able to do whatever I want. So I came and it's like, got my backpack and okay, I'm leaving, love you. And I went to live in a hostel for 2.5 years. And it was basically like traveling without moving. And that's why I became a portrait artist and caricaturist.
Wait, so you, the same hostel for 2 years or many hostels for 2 years?
No, the same for 2 years. It was
why didn't you just rent your apartment at that? I mean, you could have rented an apartment.
Because it was cheaper and more fun. It's like, again, it's like traveling without moving because people from all over the world will come to you. And I remember it was like every month it was a different nationality because people get different vacation times in different parts of the world. So there was like the Spanish people, the Australians, the Americans, the Israelis, the Basques, all the things. And that was kind of very enrichment for me. And it's just, I learned so much in those years. It's probably one of the most beautiful times in my life too. Because I was just basically like, I was living as an artist, basically living from my art day by day. And Antigua, Guatemala is a beautiful city if you ever have the opportunity to go there. It's coffee everywhere. And at that time, it was even more beautiful than it was now. It wasn't that commercialized as it's now.
When your grandmother, international parents overall, they're like, it's my roof, it's my rules, this is what you have to do. And you're like, and church, family, food, like, I mean, everyone understands that concept of staying together. You're 18, you're like, time for me to go. What did she say? What did she say? And then of course, as you kept on like for 2 years, I mean, obviously she saw you, but as 2 years you're living in the hostel, you're creating a path. What did she even think of what you were doing and why you're doing it? And did she try to get you to like come back home?
Yeah, they were really worried overall, but like Karen worrying, kind of worried. Like they also knew I was, I wouldn't say I was a rebel, but I always tried to do things my own way. I wouldn't say I was a bad boy, but I was a pretty good kid, just trying to do my own thing. Didn't like the traditional way of doing things always, for some reason. Never liked to take the beaten path. And although respected too, So they kind of knew I was going for my own thing. And of course, 18 years old and it's Guatemala. So it's always complicated over there. So of course they were a little bit worried, but I think they were proud because Latino families, sometimes the kids, they stay for too long. And, I grew up with my grandparents. So they were like, they already had 5 kids and I was the 6th one. And they love me a lot. But, it's like, I will feel proud if I ever have a kid and tells me I'm 18, I feel ready for the world. Even before that, it's a different kind of thinking about life.
And how was it that you lived with your grandparents?
Because, my mom, she was 19 when she had me. She was very young, very pretty, living,
You're not an ugly guy. You're not an ugly guy. So this is good.
Then my dad, he moved to the US, but I never really had like a good relationship or even a relationship with him. All I remember from him, it was he gave me a Nintendo when I came here to visit to the US, and that's how he got me happy. And I was like, okay, I'm okay.
I got Nintendo, yes.
Yeah, I forgive you, whatever.
I love if it was just that easy. Oh, it was just that easy. Okay, we're gonna pause on you for a little bit. Although you started really good. Kamala. I just love it. Okay, so where are you from? Tell me your story, and of course, you got to talk about how did you get your name.
Sure. So Kamala is Sanskrit. It means lotus flower, and also a little bit of an untraditional story. So my dad actually grew up on the South Shore. He's from Canton. My mom grew up in California, but they had an unlikely meeting. Their marriage was arranged because I grew up in an Eastern religion. So I'm not sure if you've heard of the Hare Krishnas.
Yes. This story is getting good. Oh my
whole other box.
Okay. I really want to start peeling the onion now, but I'm like, I'm gonna let you keep talking, keep going, because so much to talk about.
So that's how my parents met. They actually only knew each other for about 2.5 or 3 weeks before they got married. They got married, they had me, their guru named me. So that's how I was lucky enough to come to have the name Kamala. It could have turned out very differently. At least it's 3 syllables, 3 A's, pretty easy to pronounce. Some of my friends were like Shama Sundari, Radha Priya, Gora Krishna, very, it's a little bit hard if you're trying to write your name on a Scantron, but Kamala. I grew up traveling a lot. So we lived in Puerto Rico for a few years, India, different places in California, Colorado, but we finally landed in Florida. So in Florida, there was a big Hare Krishna community, a lot of families. I'm an only child, so I was craving like one set of friends in one place. So we lived in Florida from, when I was about 10 years old until I came up for college. What else?
What was your major in college?
So I was actually a philosophy major. Originally, I was really curious about Italian. My grandfather immigrated, or his parents immigrated from Italy. So I had a real affinity for, learning about the Italian culture. So I was studying Italian, and then I was starting to notice that there were conflicts in my classes. I could either take Italian, or I could take Ethics 101, or I could take modern philosophy. And I started to become like more interested in philosophy. I just really liked the challenge and the critical thinking that came along with it. So yeah, I ended up becoming a philosophy major. I went to Wheaton College, so pretty close by. My family, was my grandparents, my aunts and uncles, they all really valued education, where unfortunately my father didn't. He thought like, you're a woman, get married, cook and clean, education is actually not that important. But I had a lot of support from my extended family who were really encouraging me to, sort of look outside of my bubble. When I was 18, I was like, I'll just stay in Florida. I'll go to the University of Florida. But they just encouraged me to broaden my horizons and, take a look up north. Obviously, we have great schools. So yeah, I finally made my way up north and went to Wheaton, and then I just haven't left Boston since. It's been pretty compelling.
So for earlier, because when you said Canton, and just so everyone knows, Canton is in it's a town in the South Shore of Massachusetts. Okay, where do I start with peeling your onion? Whoa. Okay, we're gonna start with the fact that your dad from Massachusetts met your mom in California, and was someone a Hare Krishna already, or how did they meet, and who was Hare Krishna first? Let's just start there.
Great question. So I'm pretty sure that my dad technically joined the Hare Krishnas before my mother, but maybe only by like 6 months or a year or something along those lines. And my dad, I'm pretty sure, was in Mississippi, living on a farm, being a Hare Krishna there. And my mom was in San Diego. That's where she joined. And the 80s were a time when different gurus in the religion sort of had like their own zone, their own like oversight. They must have been in the same zone. I'm not even really sure, but they had the same guru. So the same guru sort of gave them their names and initiated them into the religion. And they were both in their early like late 20s, early 30s, and they said, we're ready to get married. And I think honestly, they were just like, you're 30, you're 31. Sure. Why not arrange this marriage between them? And I may have the details wrong. I'm not entirely sure. All I know is that their marriage was arranged by this guru, and that was how they met. That's how it was facilitated. So not necessarily like that they were in the same geographic location, because they both moved to Florida at some point. Yeah.
Okay, wait a second. I'm going to call out Ricardo for a quick second. Dude, if you put that cup down one more time and I hear that clank one more time, I'm going to sit there and jump to the screen. Stop it. Stop it. Okay, I'm going to be your mother right now, your grandmother. Stop it. Okay, now back to you, Kamala. All right, so you are, how was it for you when this is all you know? This is the world that you grew up with. But are you able to see how other individuals are living? Are people questioning you? I'm always so curious about different religions. I'm Catholic, first generation born in America. My family's from Haiti. So it's always so interesting when I go back to like other countries, and church is so important. Like religion is so important when you're overseas. Here, if you go, you go. If you don't, you go. I'm more spiritual in the United States than I am religious going to church, because my brain goes in so many different directions, because the priest says something, then I'm like, oh, you're a hypocrite. I don't think you should say that. My brain goes in so many different places. But when you go overseas, it's like, we still have the same thoughts, but it's just, I don't know, you respect it more overseas or in other countries or in other groups. I work for Governor Romney. He's Mormon. Everyone knows he's Mormon. Fascinated by the religion, not because I watched Big Love, because I got to ask him questions. And so were people curious about you? Did they ask you questions? Were you afraid or engaged? How was it growing up in that ecosystem?
So no matter what, I couldn't be ignored, right? Like, because, we were wearing saris, we looked different than anyone else in the rest of society. And what was funny is, like, even if I went to India and I'm wearing a sari and I'm like, oh, well, we're dressing alike. I'm white, so I'm different. So I did have this experience of being different in both places, right? Different in the US and different in India. As a kid, I was like very outgoing. So I would walk up to strangers and I'd be like, do you know who Krishna is? And like ready to talk about who I was and my upbringing. As I got older, of course, you start to notice like, oh, no, they're wearing jeans, they're wearing pants. I look different. And so I became a little self-conscious, but because there was such a huge community in Florida, it was just outside of Gainesville, North Central Florida. They kind of all knew who we were, like they were. It's like if you live in an Amish community, but you're not Amish, you're like, yeah, that's a horse and buggy walking down the street. You get used to it. So yeah, I got used to it, and at some point I definitely started to question, the different rituals. Getting up at 4:30 in the morning was not my favorite thing in the world to do, to like go meditate and pray. But
I get up at 4:30 in the morning because that's the quiet time of my day.
And that's why people do it. I completely respect it. And you see the sunrise, and it's quiet, it's peaceful. You can really focus, you can meditate, you can just get stuff done if that's your thing. Have coffee early in the morning.
I got a cup in my hand, so I don't please.
Okay, no, because now we're gonna go back. Like you can put it down now, because I know you're done. The fear, Jodi's gonna scold me again. I don't hold back the punches. I'm not gonna lie to you. I don't hold back the punches. So how did we? Let's start rolling into So you're in school, you're in college. Ricardo, you get here 8 years ago, but how did you guys meet? Because how did your lives evolve to the point where there's a meeting between the both of you?
It's we met for the first time at the Sinclair, this venue. I was working in the kitchen, she was working on the front of the house, and yeah, we say hi, hello, and maybe a couple words, and but how I was too busy, she was too busy, there was no time to talk. And then later, after we both move on to different places or other jobs, Tinder, I was like swiping, and I was like, okay, I know her.
No way. No,
Yeah.
you know what? I'm not gonna lie to you. The online matching and LinkedIn in my mind, like when people get jobs at LinkedIn, I'm like, really? You got a job on LinkedIn? Really? And when people find their loves on Tinder's, I'm like, really? No way. I'm always fascinated by that.
To be fair, we did know each other before. So like I recognized him immediately. And, again, we both worked at the same restaurant. I was a bartender. He was in the kitchen. So there's not that much opportunity unless, you stay after and you sit at the bar. I'm working until 2 a.m. You're done at 11
I used to run out of there right away.
He ran out. He was always done. But I always remembered that he was the happiest person in the kitchen. He was always smiling. He always had like such a great attitude, whereas others were like yelling and just miserable and not very nice to each other, to be totally honest. But I remembered your face, your smile, his tattoo. He did his tattoo himself. And I thought like, oh, he's an artist. He's extremely talented.
You drew it, you didn't do it.
No, I did it.
He did it.
I was also a tattoo artist at some point.
My God, we're never gonna get to the sauce, guys. I'm just gonna tell you that right now. We're never gonna get to the sauce. You did it by yourself. All right, pull it up again. Pull up your arm. Let me see the arm. Are you kidding me?
How are you gonna forget that someone made their own tattoo? Like designed it and did it themselves. So he always
it was too expensive to go to a tattoo studio, so I can do that. That's how I felt.
I get a paper cut. If I get a paper cut, I'm crying to my mother. Like, how did you even endure the pain?
Well, nobody wanted to volunteer for me to try. So I said like, well, let's do it. I was shaking and like sweating for the first, when I poked myself for the first time, it was like, but I guess it's the curiosity of learning, and that kind of the pain actually becomes it. I think it's also like a great way to understand whoever you were tattooing, how they feel and how they might feel in order for you to I don't know, feel connected with them. I think tattooing, I don't know if this happens to everybody in their studios, but when I did this, I was traveling, and so kind of like form like a bond with the person. They'll tell you everything. It's like an interview, and I don't know. So I love that about the tattooing.
So yes, I agree with you. So I have a very large tattoo that unless you are intimate with me or unless I'm on the beach, you're not going to see the tattoo. And I designed it in the whole entire thing. I knew I wanted to get it when I was older because I didn't want to be that young person that gets a tattoo that you regret. I waited till I was older, and it's a story. It's a full story. The first time I went and they just did the outline, I'm like, yeah, I'm good. They're like, what do you mean? I go, you don't need to fill it in. You don't need to color it. You don't need to do it, because it was when I say excruciating pain. And I'm like, nope. I was like, I didn't go back they kept on calling me. They're like, you have to come back. I'm like, nope, you already paid for it. I'm like, nope. I'm like, I'm not coming back. It hurt so badly. So then the second time I went back, he's like, I'm going to put Lanacane on it. So that way you're going to feel no pain whatsoever. I go, okay. I couldn't walk. I was like, are you high? This hurts.
Well,
like, no.
Just in relationship to that, of course, the US, I'm doing this as a gypsy person. And, I used to, people who were getting tattoos, they were getting high at the same time. So, this is like, okay, perfect.
Well, I asked them, like, can I do a shot of whiskey? They're like, no, because you'll bleed. Like, I go, you'll bleed more. I'm like,
alcohol is not supposed to be okay.
I respect you on so many levels, to do it. I've never heard that I mean, I'm sure people do it. I've never heard that ever. And I'm like, wow. I mean, we are like a half an hour into this, and I'm like, we are really not getting to the sauce. There's so much that you guys have already said that I'm like, I've never heard any of this stuff before. Holy crap!
This is what we were talking about. Like, I feel like part of getting to your own company, starting your own company, is a way to put all that experience in life, and whatever talents you have or an interest, you just pour yourself into this with all this essence that you are. And I think that's what it gives us and any other company kind of a personality, kind of like its own flavor.
Oh no, you're giving good personality here. This is good. So you guys meet on Tinder. You guys start forming a relationship. Okay. So from Tinder to the business, how did that happen?
Well, we got married and December 30th, and COVID hit
Like
right
2
after.
months later.
And
Murphy's law.
Yeah, it's like this is like a fire test a little bit. If we're able to survive this lockdown, just married, it's like
We had just moved in together as well. Like, not that we're traditional, it just so happened, like he had a great living situation, I had a great living situation. We get married December 30th, and literally we move in together, like, I don't know, mid-February, and 6 weeks later, boom, we're locked down.
Yeah. And then, I lost my job. I was working with Haiti House, a beautiful company, non-profit. I was the program coordinator of TBK, Take Back the Kitchen. It's a program that teaches kids how to eat and cook well for themselves and their families, and a budget. And beautiful job. I love that job. Unfortunately, the program, because of obviously you could not do that during the pandemic, so it got on a pause, and the cafe closed, and so a lot of things happening. And then try a couple of other jobs, and I was like, I'm done with the cooking world, with the restaurant industry, actually, not the cooking. I love cooking. And she actually, Kamala, she works at Toast. Can you describe that?
Yeah. So I'm a lead product designer at Toast. I don't know if you've heard of them, but they're
I do know them very well.
Yeah, restaurant technology. I've been there for over 5 years, but prior to, I had worked in public health, and then worked in the restaurant industry as well, serving, bartending, hosting. So I had, about 10 years of hospitality experience, which served me well, of course, when I decided to pivot my career and, learn more about user experience design. So I did a boot camp, and then I started at Toast. But so I am working full-time at home in the bedroom on the laptop. And, that was kind of the setting the scene of, where we were in our little 1-bedroom near Fenway, right at the beginning of the pandemic.
Yeah. And I was working with a restaurant. I'm not going to say the name, but they were exploiting me. And, so I decided to, what? I'm done with this, because no matter how much effort I put, and I'm very efficient. That's something that characterizes me in my profession. I'm practical, efficient, make things work. But sometimes restaurant industry is not ready to acknowledge that, or it just doesn't pay you enough. That's the truth. So I said, enough. I value my marriage, our life together, because I was getting very early and getting at home at 8, 9 o'clock. So basically I was more than 12 hours there, because I was the person in charge. And my work ethic, it tells me I don't leave the job until I get this done and ready for tomorrow. So I said, you know what, this is not being appreciated, so I'm gonna quit. And this is a kind of a very bold decision at that point, because it's the pandemic and there's not many jobs, or there is, I don't know, but I had a full-time job, but it was so bad that I decided, no, I'm done with this. And then came up the question, what I'm going to do, right? So Kamala.
I mean, basically, I'm lucky enough to have a chef who's at home cooking, so after he's done with this job, trying to figure out what he's doing. Every day he's making these beautiful, elaborate lunches that are absolutely delicious, delicious sauces. And, we just kind of said to each other, like, what if you make sauces? What if you make hot sauce? Like, he has this way of combining flavors that maybe are a little unconventional. I always say that, like, he genre bends in the kitchen, right? Like, every music has like a mashup. It's Afro pop, it's indie electronica. And I think, he does that with food, where when we first met, I would be like, why are you putting fish sauce in this? Or,
I love fish sauce.
He loves fish sauce. But like, why are you combining these flavors that I maybe wouldn't expect? He put pickles in salsa yesterday, and I'm like, and it's delicious. So it's unexpected. I was like, dude, you have a talent, you know what you're doing.
And of course, we don't want to open a restaurant because like, it's
right now.
Well, let me just stop you for a quick second. I'll start with Kamala. You come from a Hare Krishna background. What is the main course of meals there in comparison to what you're experiencing now?
I mean, so it's Indian American, it's their take on Indian food. I love spices. I hate spices in seed form. So I have these very distinct memories of being a kid and just picking out fennel seeds, cumin seeds. So a lot of rice, a lot of vegetable dishes, different kinds of bread.
Is it more vegetarian, vegan style?
It is very strictly vegetarian, no meat, no fish, no eggs, and then some other random stuff like no onion, garlic, no mushrooms.
That is all the things that we eat as internationals, especially Caribbeans. That's all we eat.
Yeah.
So when did you get to the point where, I mean, was it the restaurants first where you're like, oh, look, a piece of chicken. Oh, look, a piece of fish. I mean, did you start going the route of, when did you start discovering all these different foods?
Yeah. I'd say definitely working in restaurants, so 2008, I'm working at a restaurant in Cambridge, and I stayed strict vegetarian for a really long time. And then, somewhere in my early 20s, I started experimenting. Like, well, maybe this beautiful piece of, tuna steak looks actually pretty good. So I started branching out. I still don't eat meat. I'm still, pescatarian, but I never give up cheese. God, no. Never. No. Sacrilege.
Cheese is good. Cheese is good. So when did you, you guys meet and then he starts playing with all these different sauces. Was there a time where you're like, I'm not trying that? Or you're like, I'm in? Because food is love. Love is food.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I have tried probably 67 different types of hot sauces. There have been nights where there's like version 1, version 8, version 12. I'm like, okay, I have to pick up and try this tomorrow because I don't think my stomach can handle it. But I love you and I will try all of them. And I'll tell you that they all taste different.
Yeah, our fridge is full with the hot sauce tests. So it's taking half of the fridge.
As it should be. Okay, so because I just need to understand your food habits prior to meeting each other. So so now Ricardo, how did you discover how to make these sauces? Because it's usually in a traditional Hispanic home, men are not allowed in the kitchen, and if they are,
I still as a chef today. Remember when I told you I went to Switzerland? I lived there 8 years.
Yeah.
I became a chef there, and I come back to Guatemala like very proud to my grandma's house, grandma's kitchen. I'm gonna cook for you, and she tells me, nope, get out of the kitchen. I was like, okay.
Was she ever able to eat your food? Were you ever able to convince her?
But honestly, I haven't cooked that much for her. Maybe like once or twice, because first, she's a great cook. One of the things that I never had a bad meal at my house, especially lunches or breakfast, I will wake up because I was hungry, smelling, you know, the beans, the eggs, the plantains, the tortillas, the coffee, the cheese. Oh my God. That's what actually woke me up. And my grandpa, he loved hot sauces. And this is where the hot sauce comes in, and, you know, with the emotional connection. He passed, he died like 2017. Okay. And he was my father. And so he loved hot sauce. Everywhere he was eating hot sauce, he will bring his own little hot sauce with him. He will make his own hot sauce, hiding himself from my grandma, because again, he could not get into the kitchen. He will do it he had a little land in the mountains over there. So he will go there, make the hot sauce and bring it home. Oh my yeah, it was like that. But also, you know, it's and he had this Serrano hot sauce that he made, that it was very thick. It looked very, I don't know, very rustic. And I love that consistency. And that's actually the sauce that kind of inspired me with our first product, that was salsa verde. It started with serranos only, and then I added jalapenos, and then I added more jalapenos because serranos are too spicy for a lot of people here. So that's what basically inspired his love for hot sauce. And, you know, and besides being a beautiful product to work with, the peppers are amazing. So it just kind of inspired.
So you were inspired by your grandfather, but I mean, did he share recipes, or did you just start doing it yourself? And did you guys talk to each other ever about it ever?
No, that's the thing. Like it kind of like, you kind of just absorb that, you know, like, I don't know, I see good cooking, and you kind of like, I never was allowed to cook for them. You know, all I will do is like maybe do some refried beans and eggs for myself when they were not at home, because that was my favorite food ever. It still is. Yeah. And you just kind of like, you know, remember when I told you that I left home when I was 18? Okay, you're an adult now, supposedly, and you have to cook, fend for yourself. And then I try food from other people. I'm like, oh my God, this is bad. So you start cooking, you know,
especially when you're international. I mean, for me, Haitian food that was like what we were raised with. I mean, we always had a hot meal. So I remember going to one of a friend's house for a lunch once, and they're like cold cuts. I'm like, cold cuts, bologna and a salami. Like, what is that? Why is your meat cold? Are you okay? I go, our family has hot meals all the time. So I was horrified. To this day, cold cuts bread has to be toasted. Cold cuts have to be heated up. I just don't eat that stuff at all. I think it's weird. It's just weird. Or even peanut butter and jelly. Let's toast it up. Let's get a hot toasted peanut butter and fluff, not jelly, kind of a sandwich.
I got opinions about peanut butter and fluff. I still not there. I think that's the
if I'm gonna go American, that's the only thing I want, because peanut butter and jelly didn't work for me. But peanut butter toasted, you gotta try it. A peanut butter and toasted fluff. Oh, nice. It has to be toasted. It can't be cold. Okay. Toasted. Oh, see, when we're done, go ahead. It's gonna be cold this weekend. I think that's what you need to do, with a nice cup of like a nice warm beverage with a little whiskey or bourbon.
Chocolate.
I'm here for you. Okay. When did you decide to like actually cultivate this sauce into a business? So we don't want to, like, we're in a pandemic. We don't want to actually have a restaurant. Obviously, it's not an option. But now we're thinking about, hey, let's do our own thing. One, why now? Okay. Why now? Number two, what were the trials and tribulations, the highs and lows of actually doing this? And number three, because I'm throwing out a lot of questions because I want you guys to talk. You're a couple, a brand new couple during a pandemic, starting a new business. Wow. Okay. So how was I'm throwing all these things at you, like, why now? Why this? Wow. Why the sauce, selling the sauce versus the restaurant? And hello, you're being thrown everything. I mean, literally everything, including the kitchen sink, during the time of your growth of this brand new product.
So
why now?
No better time than the present. It was just like, we have to do it, right? Let's try it. And honestly, all what I going to your second question, or the third one about the tribulations, all I've been wanting to do since we started the company, it was to sell hot sauce. That's it. Sell hot sauce. It's putting hot sauce into a bottle, make it safe, and that's it. But the way, the journey until we were permitted, like a couple of months ago,
yeah,
it was excruciating. It's like, I don't know. And this is something that, since we're in an interview, I'm gonna say that maybe the city of Boston can hear this. You know, like, it's so difficult for small companies and people who has no experience to find help and a roadmap on how to do this. We had the luck that we started working with Commonwealth Kitchen in Dorchester.
we love Jennifer. We love Jen.
And they help us a lot with trying to find out. And even with them, it was very difficult because every product is different, but you know, but you need a permit for everything, even if it's sometimes like a circus, because, you know, honestly, you know, it's very complicated. We find out in our journey that city of Boston doesn't talk with the state of Massachusetts, and they were requiring the same permit, and they didn't know about this. So we initiated a little war there, you know, luckily find out that, hey, we don't need a retail permit for selling acidified food products, and, you know, all of the things.
Wait, can I ask a question? Can I ask a question? When you say, all right, so you have to get a permit from the city of Boston and then also the state of Massachusetts for the food. So I'm confused. Why is it that you need a permit for this, a sauce in particular?
A retail, the state of Massachusetts, they require you to have a approved health permit, you know, that you basically, that you don't kill anyone.
Right, no, absolutely. Okay, I get that part.
But the city of Boston asks for the same thing, but at the same time, if you want to do retail, not wholesale, that was the whole thing. You get when you get a permit from the state of Massachusetts, it says wholesale. Yeah. When you get it from Boston, it has to say retail. But what will be the difference between that, right? I'm selling, I think it's even more difficult and more dangerous to sell huge amounts of sauce to a business than to one or two other persons, direct consumer. Right. So basically, I told them, hey, look, why do I need this permit? I explained it the same thing, and they were like, they didn't really get it. And so what happened is basically the person, the big boss from I don't know where, ended up selling everybody Ricky's Hot Stuff doesn't need a retail permit because we are okay with the wholesale permit, and it's too complicated. I'm sorry, but the thing is, like, I didn't need that, but that made us lose about 2 to 3 months of our business. You know, because during that time we were so afraid of start selling our sauce. Yeah.
You know, we want to do everything by the book. We absolutely, you know, from day one, we wanted to ensure that we were following all of the regulations. You know, English is my first language, and even finding information on various, you know, government websites, like, that's half the battle, is just trying to figure out exactly what are the steps that you need to do. What are the different certifications or requirements? So that was definitely half the battle. You know, of course, like developing your product and figuring out your label and your brand, and, you know, how to start a direct-to-consumer e-commerce business and how to do retail. There are a million things that you have to learn, but just figuring out how to get permitted. And thank God for Commonwealth Kitchen, honestly, because they, you know, they got us, you know, to the place that we needed to be, you know, when it came to understanding the right permitting. But, you know, as Ricardo said, they're supporting so many different types of businesses, you know, bulk wholesale businesses, people who are bakers, you know, people who are making tea and candies, and, you know, there's so many different types of food you can sell. And for each one, understanding the nuanced regulations and requirements is like, almost impossible.
So to ask you, I mean, so there's a lot of individuals that have those recipes from mom and dad or grandparents. They've created something on their own. They want to start something. What advice would you give to anyone that has a food or beverage that they want to start? Because I've met and engaged with so many different people, and we talk about the story, we talk about the history, we talk about how the process of developing it, but hardly anyone talks about once the product is done and you have the beautiful branding, the label, they don't talk about the rest of it. So what best advice would you tell to someone that has a food or beverage product? Once the product is ready, what's the best advice that they should be prepared for?
Think out of the box.
What do you mean?
You know, the more you learn about this industry, CPG, and you learn that it's a little bit of a losing game for small companies. Because the moment you have to scale up and be able to provide your product for distributors and I don't know how you say, the big boys in this company, in this industry, you have to have enough capital to be able to, you know, produce massive amounts of your product. And also there's so many little things that you don't know about this that, you know, put you in a losing position. And yeah, so what we've been trying to do since the very beginning is to carve our own path a little bit, not the beaten path. You know, it's usually you get your product until it's ready to launch, and then you start looking for distributors, start looking for the, you know, a lot of people dreams, even us in the beginning, was like, oh, I want to have my sauce in Whole Foods and Costco. But we realized that that is maybe not a good idea, because you have to have so much money, and, you know, you have to replace and pay a lot of fees. We find out that a lot of grocery stores, they actually make money from the vendors, you know, they charge them fees, and there's a whole thing about this. So what we've been trying to do is to stay hyper local, you know, working with the small grocery stores, specialties, you know, because I don't think it will do you any good to have your, you know, 10,000 units of your product at Market Basket, for example, but no one knows you, right? And as a consumer, you don't buy, it takes a lot to make you buy something you don't know, unless it looks, I don't know, it's placed in a special place. I don't know how exactly this works, but we decided to grow organically instead of looking for the investors, instead of, you know, like, not that we don't need the money. It's just, we want to have fully control of how we want this company. Also, you know, people you work with. I work with, for example, with temporary workers, you know, from Colombia, Tanzania, people I met over my years in the restaurant industry, and I select them because they're great workers. They're all senior, most of them, by the way, because I love to work with senior people, especially because they are, I think it's like it's very untapped workforce, you know, first of all, they're very good at work, you know, like they have a work ethic like no one else. And, you know, I don't know, they find pride in the work, in the job. And I don't know, maybe it's because I grew up with my grandma also, you know, my grandparents, that I appreciate those things. And
I do love, I was gonna say, I do love that, because I mean, so I took care of my grandmother for 21 years and she died at 95, 6 years ago. And I have to say that, I mean, I love older people, because the knowledge, people forget, the knowledge that they have is amazing. And I always say, like, why would we learn all these different skills and then just die with them? And you want to share it, because that's how you keep your legacy alive. I mean, your grandfather's legacy is alive. Your grandmother's legacy will be alive. I go, the people that you're working with, their legacy will always be alive because of what you're experiencing with them. And I go, and another group of people that people forget, military, are another group of individuals that when they get out of the military, so this is like why, I mean, which I was taught, so many people go back to the military because they can't navigate the civilian world. And so they try to sit there and, like, they have all these amazing skills. They're like captains, lieutenants, etc. They try to come back to the civilian world, and they're like, they're revered as nobodies. And so they go back in, even whether they want to or not, they go back in. And so I always say, like, I mean, I hire a lot of interns throughout the years. I bring in military folks because they need a bridge of something before they go back into a job, just to familiarize themselves. And so that's another group of individuals that are disregarded. Older individuals with great knowledge, and military people are people that are disregarded all the time. And yet I don't know why we do that to ourselves. Because in other countries, we don't do that.
No, no, and they keep you on your toes.
Ooh,
if I would
do they
tell you
ever?
the amount of knowledge, the amount of knowledge that, practical knowledge, like there's this, I'm going to tell this little story from this person who works with me. Her name, I'm not going to say names, but basically she came from Tanzania, and met her working at a restaurant, and she was washing dishes. And then she tells me, "Can I make some bread for you? Do you know chapati?" And I was like, "Yeah, I know, but African chapati?" And I was like, "Okay, you do it. Can you do? We're a little bit on a rush, but can you do it?" "Yeah, I can do it in 20 minutes." And I don't know from where she made chapati, delicious chapati bread in 20 minutes. And I was like, "Oh my God!" And I was trying to create a menu for this restaurant.
Yep.
And then suddenly I thought, "Oh my God." So I go to the general manager and say, "Hey, so our dishwasher is a great, she can do this bread, and, can we do something about this, And so, well, we ended up during the pandemic because, we are integrating chapati bread into the menu, and delicious, and besides that, she always had these little secrets of something. This is how something will break. She will use dough to fix it as a glue, and I'm talking, she's something 60 something, and, she's lifting one table with one hand and sweeping underneath. And I'm like, "You're back." And she told me, "Hi, this is African back." It's like, and I'm having a pain in my knee, and I'm like, "Don't say anything, Ricardo," because and this is the whole lesson about this working with them, is that, we're young relatively, and seeing senior people working that much, and they say, and this is what also my grandma tells me, and all the older people that I met in my life, work keeps you alive.
Yes.
It's the moment you stop moving, life is movement is when you start dying. And
it's true. I feel that 100%, because it is one of those moments where I'm watching people, and even I'm watching it was the Pearl Harbor anniversary, and they were showing all the individuals that are over 100 years old that were in Pearl Harbor, and they're still alive. And then family, the grandkids are like, "Oh yeah, they never talked about Pearl Harbor, they never talked about the war, but they were still alive, and now they're talking to each other, and they're meeting up with each other, and they're going to Hawaii." And I'm like, there's that okay. And I spoke to someone earlier today. It's the second you have that zest for life, you will always keep going. No one could ever put a number to you, because you're constantly moving, you're constantly doing something, you're constantly teaching yourself, and you're constantly teaching other people as well.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And another thing that, should be, since we're in this interview, is to be considered about working with this population, this demographic, is that, they're still older than you. And, you have to consider that, given a good pay, for hourly. Yeah. And sometimes I hear these people are getting paid $11 per hour still at that age. And, so not saying, we are paying them, when we pay them a fairly hourly wage, a little bit higher than normal, and I pick them up at the station, pick them up at their house, I drop them off after, because, if you're going to get this quality of workers, staff, you have to give back. From my experience, and this is why I think it's been so valuable, this bad experience at work in the restaurant industry, is to appreciate, how can you make life better for these people, because it's hard work. Restaurant industry is back-breaking work.
Oh no, I think that's how I paid for college. I paid for college going through whether I was here, I worked at the Fleet Center when it was a Fleet Center, now back to the Garden. I put myself, when I was in the University of Houston, I worked at restaurants day and night, where I think it was I was at school full-time and I was at the restaurant full-time, because those are the hours that you keep. But you also know, as a wait staff, as a hostess, I'm getting paid to pay my rent, to pay for my books, to pay for school. It was done. But it is hard work. My feet will never, ever, ever forgive me. No matter how many years I haven't done it, will never forgive me for being the hours that you're on your feet, making sure. But I remember the menus. I remember my sayings of how I would convince people. I remember always make friends with the bartender and the chef, because if something was late, you knew who was going to take care of you. I go,
Yep.
and so the customers would always be happy. Going back to being a new couple with a new business during a pandemic, how was that in regards of navigating? You guys are at home, okay? You're starting a new product. So at least one person's in the computer in the room, one person's in the kitchen, but you're still like creating a business in a pandemic. Like, how was that for you? And how was it now? I mean, we're still in a pandemic, but it's like, it's 22 months of pandemic land, pandemic pause, as I call it. So how has it been for you from the beginning when you decided to do this, your marriage, how it's evolved, and now where you are right now?
Yeah. But thankfully, we had been together for, almost 2.5 or 3 years prior to getting married. So it's not as though we like just met, got married, and then decided to start a business. So, a strong foundation, obviously, of, respect and love is what will.
She likes the beach. I like the beach.
Shared interests.
Starts there.
Shared interests. But really it was about, support, because, if you were to ask me right now, like, would you do it again? Of course, in a heartbeat. But, when I look back and I think about the moments, right, when we were sitting there and deciding whether or not we're going to start a business, for me, it was about, like, as he said, what better time than the present? Why not now? And if we can make anything work under these circumstances with all of this uncertainty, what's to say, what will happen in the future? So it was really from my perspective, it was a no-brainer. Yes, I'm working full time. I'm, really busy ensuring that that part of our life keeps moving, but it was also about support. I see how much, joy he gets from creating and tinkering. And if you haven't figured it out by now, he's an insanely curious person. And that's one of the things I love most about him. It's like, if he doesn't know how it works, it's like, I'm going to go watch 15 YouTube videos. I'm going to read an article. I'm going to listen to 5 podcasts. I'm going to read a book. And so it's that tenacity plus this, curiosity that I'm like, we want to make sauce. Let's try and make sauce. Let's do it. And, just kind of like, just sort of jumped head first and didn't overthink it. Right. Because I'm very practical. And if I had sat there overthinking every moment and every possibility, I probably would have been like, is this a great idea? But here we are, and, never looked back.
No, we've been very lucky, like, I think if we would have known too much about the industry, how it works in the beginning, we probably wouldn't have done it. But hey, that's life. And that's the beauty about it. It's like, you find this is experience, and it's a learning experience. And the things that, not only the things that we had before the company, and now is the things that we learned through the company and that we're going to bring to the next chapter. Because, Ricky's, our company is, right now is hot sauces, but we knew it from the very beginning. It's a brand, it's a company, we want to, first of all, like, create something that gives our workers, our staff, appreciation, because that's another motive behind our company, is that we want to create the environment that we didn't get as restaurant workers.
Good place to work.
A good place to work. And also, yeah.
But, I think it's definitely about the evolution, right?
Yeah.
And thinking, trying multiple tactics. He said, staying really hyper local, to begin and try and develop this organic growth and brand recognition, and not sort of shoot for the moon. That maybe that's not the right goal for us, right? If it, let's say selling in Whole Foods, does that actually make financial sense for us at our stage right now? Maybe not. And so being really intentional with, how we want to try and grow the brand. And again, try a lot of stuff. Like, there are a million hot sauces. I think ours tastes fantastic. But what else can we try to grow the business?
And that's when the pivoting came. And so besides doing hot sauces, we make custom private label hot sauces for companies, restaurants.
Ooh.
So that means, for example, if I don't know, some tech company decides to have a event, and that actually just happened. We made 3,000 bottles of hot sauce for this company, and like
you white label it. That's perfect. That's like that. I mean, it's a great way. That's fantastic.
Yeah, because there's so many hot sauces, and like I think.
Well, I was gonna say, I'm gonna stop you for a quick second. I think that's great because so I went a couple of years ago. I visited a place in Chelsea, and they make cannolis, and I'm like, I go, all right, like cannolis. They're like, yeah, these are the cannolis that are sold in the North End. I'm like, I go, what? They're like, we're a family-owned business. I will not say their names because they'd probably like not be happy if I did. They're in Chelsea, and they were like, I got there at like 4 o'clock in the morning because I'm a morning person. So I got there and I saw the facility, family-owned business, and it's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. But what was cool was she looked at me. She goes, "Do you think in Little North End all these cannolis that tourists come and visit all the time are made here?" And I'm like, right, you're right. They're not exactly that moment of, So it was really cool to actually like, I think that was when I really got the whole entire essence of, right, things are white labeled because one family, one group of it can produce, and they've created this thing that everyone likes, but people want to get the credit for it. And people don't pay attention to where it's coming from. But then there's the rest of the story. Where is it coming from? So I think that's great. It gets more people to understand your sauce, but then where did the sauce come from? Then your name gets out more and more and more and more.
Exactly. It's instead of going to 60 farmers markets, we do a big sale for a big event, and that covers basically, instead of doing the other tactic, we take this and it just works better. And hopefully that's, we can keep both branches of our business going. Yes, we want to keep Ricky's, give it because the sauces are great. It's a great product. And at the same time, we can, right now in the pandemic and in the future too, for restaurants, I know how expensive it is for restaurants to, cover costs and all of these things. So why not bottle your own product, and just sell it to consumers directly from your restaurant, from your company? It's a good thing to take home and,
Well, it's great. It's great branding. As a marketing person, I'm not gonna lie to you, I love good branding. I'm going to pause on this for a quick second to go back to your workers. You started this company when the pandemic started. So how did you find the workers, and how were you able to take care of them and you? Because I think that's one of the biggest things where people, I mean, there, I forgot what food magazine it was, but they had a whole entire section of, it was called Audacity, the audacity for you to start a new product, the audacity for you to open a brick and mortar restaurant during a pandemic, which I love because again, it is the best time. So how did you find the workers? You see people talking about the great walkout. There's signs everywhere that are saying like, I go, help wanted, but people aren't filling it. I always tell people, take care of your workers and they'll take care of you. And we are seeing how so many people were not taken care of. So how did you find people when you just started a company, we'll call it in the midst of the pandemic, and now people are starting to leave companies?
Yeah, well, somebody told me, how are you gonna do this? There's no workers. And I was like, well, I have a little army of grandmas, and it's just, I will say a lot of people don't, the unconventional ways. There is so many people willing to work, I'm gonna say this, read between the lines,
Oh, but, I'm reading. Don't worry about it. I'm reading between the lines.
So many people willing to work and hard workers. And I'm sorry, that's someone. That's a ring dog.
Yep.
But we don't look in the right places. The people we know, the people in the restaurant industry, how, I knew all these people are always asking me for a job, hey, do you know about a place where I can get a job? People, restaurant owners are always asking me, hey, do you know someone? So I don't know, your personal relationships, how do you, I think that's very important. Your community, even if you're not friends, just remember where you came from. I was working in this restaurant. I knew this dishwasher that it was like amazing worker, but wouldn't be taken seriously because it's just a dishwasher. They didn't take time to talk to this person, ask them about their life, what do they know. And I was like, you know what, let's go, see what's, and they are there And again, read between the lines.
I am one of my friends, Shonak Patel, the Patel family. They're most amazing people. I never met his dad. I went to his dad's funeral, and one of the women that spoke there talked about how Mr. Patel, during interviews, he would sit there and like meet people on taxis and have great conversations with them. And they're like, he goes, you know what, you have a great personality. I go, here's my business card. And then the person would come and think, oh, I'm going to be a driver. They're like, no, I'm going to teach you how to code. Or like I go, when he would sit there and have a conversation with you where, okay, now that we've done this interview number 1, interview number 2, meet me at my house when you're having dinner with my family. And they're like, what? I'm like, I go, my business is my family. I go, in order for you to work here, you have to meet my family. And so if my family doesn't engage with you, and so it's one of those moments where I'm inviting you into my home, not just the business, but my home with my family. And those two things are intertwined. And I think that people aren't they're not seeing you. They're not seeing people. And earlier today, I was saying to someone that how my mother will see someone and she'll call you by name. She reads the name tag, she'll call you by name. And it's so nice to be seen in a world where people are moving so fast. And you saw the dishwasher, and not only do you see a dishwasher, but another dishwasher, you're like, I go, hey, can I make bread? And you said yes, you allowed that. So you're engaging, but you're also opening the door to a lot of individuals, because both of you guys come from a world where, I mean, little Kamala is like, I go, hey, do you want to learn about me and what I do? And I go, and Ricardo, you're just like traveling around the world and you're engaging, and you're living in a hustle where you're like, bring in more, bring in more, bring in more. I mean, they always say there's a yin and the yang to relationships coming together. You guys are definitely the yin and the yang, but there's so many similarities in regards of how you grew up, how you engage with people.
Oh, yeah.
I go, and just even how you saw each other. Yeah, how you saw each other, which was really, really nice. Which this makes so much more sense to me. And this is what I'm trying to tell people all the time. The product is only the product, but the people behind the product, you got to get to know who they are and why they are here to understand why you want to engage with the product that much more, which of course I'm not doing it right now because I have to, like, after I'm talking to you, I have to go out somewhere. But I mean, I'm buying the hot sauce because I love a good hot sauce, and I get bothered, especially being Haitian, I get bothered when someone says hot sauce and I'm like, or I went for sushi yesterday and I'm like, I want spicy tuna. I want spicy. And like, I want everything. And I was like, I'm eating this. I'm like, there is not one piece of spice on this. There's nothing. There's like, I'm feeling no heat whatsoever. My digestive system is saying like, I'm bored. So I'm looking forward to actually having your sauce.
Yeah. Try the salsa roja. It has Thai chilies, fish sauce, and garlic. And there's no other hot sauce like that. And it's spicy, very spicy.
Okay, so do we have a website? There's a website I can order on the website. Okay, perfect. Okay, this is good. All right, so I have 2 more questions before we go. Where do you see the industry of the restaurants going? Because you see what's happening in the news right now. You see restaurants that can't fill the order of like having people come in and work. You see restaurants closing, but you see restaurants coming up. Like they're coming up. People that are being creative and developing and designing, and they're like, we're going to sit there and give it a try. Where do you see it going from here? Because we see it going up and down, up and down, and up and down. We're seeing everything up and down. We see more and more people staying home. We see more and more food boxes being delivered there. Like people want to cook. I belong to a farm share. I cook a lot. I mean, my favorite restaurant is my kitchen. But I belong to a farm share. I don't go to the markets. I don't go to the markets that often. I am always creating. So where is the industry for food and beverage overall? Actually, I'm just going to say food, because beverage, liquor stores are not, they're doing great.
You're doing just fine.
Liquor stores are fine. So I'm going to take them out of next. Food industry overall is like literally it's a big shakeup. It's a big shakeup overall. Even in Boston, I mean, you're going around Boston, you're seeing restaurants being built. I'm like, it's great that you are building here, and it's great that you think in that you'll have a full house eventually. But I went to a restaurant in where was I? I was in Burlington, beautiful Brazilian restaurant that just opened there, which is it was so good, but it was empty. It was empty, and all the food that they had out there, it was empty. So what do you think, in your opinion? You are now in this industry. What do you think what's going to happen in the future?
Well, I think it should be, full disclosure, I'm happy that this happened in a way, for the restaurants, this crisis, because it's going to make them think about their practices, how they were doing things before. I think it's going to be also for the consumers, for the guests. They're going to have to adapt to, we cannot expect that everything gets done for us in a restaurant, there is now how do you say this? The QR code ordering, being a little bit more flexible as a customer. Also, as a restaurant owner, you have to be more flexible how you approach. Ghost kitchens definitely things are going that way because of the costs that it takes to open a ghost kitchen is way less than opening a whole restaurant. And we don't know where things are going. Is COVID gonna be here for 3 more years? Hopefully not, but I think definitely more individualized businesses. I don't know if that's the correct term, but also like I think there's gonna be easier to open a food business at some point because as you say, this little family, they can open a restaurant, but maybe that doesn't make sense in the long term. Maybe they just should be cooking food and selling it, without all the fancy things that you need to feel good about a plate of food. Just to the basics, is food. And this is the whole thing. We all say when everybody gets stressed about in the restaurant industry, it's just food. That's what it is. And there's so much of it. It's just food. I do believe in robots. I do think like at some point, not that I'm saying we don't need people, but there's so much work that is just like needs to get done, preparation and things like that. And I think those things with the current and coming technology is going to make things easier and cheaper for everybody. And also, it's going to allow a lot of people to make their lives easier when cooking, cover costs, and, instead of like replacing, helping the worker.
I love how, I'm happy you just said that. It's helping, not replacing, because I think that whenever people think of technology, they're just thinking my job is going to be eliminated and not realizing it can ease a lot of people's jobs so that way they can actually and also just learning about new innovations would be very helpful as well.
Yeah, I mean, I always seen technology as a friend, with all the bad things that might bring, but there's always like a huge, beautiful, bright side for things, like imagine being in the pandemic without online ordering, without all this, even there might not be the best companies and not treat everybody okay, but hey, it provided a way to keep things afloat for restaurants in a way. So that's great. It's a beautiful time to be alive and that these things happening, right now.
I do think it is a moment of reckoning, right? Of really, the industry sort of taking a hard look at itself. And I know less about sort of like the consumer packaged industry, the grocery industry. You're the one who's reading all about that. But what I'm, entrenched in right now is the restaurant industry. And I do think it is a moment of reckoning and looking at, yourself, your practices, how you're treating employees, how you're using technology, and also education, educating consumers and guests about the real cost of food, so whether it's about the wages, and the discrepancy between, the amount of money that a front of house person makes versus someone who is in the back washing dishes or, preparing food, balancing that inequity. Tips. Why are we still tipping? Like that is such an antiquated, such an antiquated practice.
It is, but as a former wait staff, there are some people that are curmudgeons, and when they don't get the right tip because they're curmudgeons and they're bad wait staff, that's one versus a person that's working really, really hard.
Or pay them a living wage. $2.63 an hour is not a living wage, and then you're
I get that.
Shackled, to you're completely beholden to a guest who may have an amazing time and have perfect service and may still choose not to tip.
And going back to, re-educate ourselves as consumers, we need to stop paying more for drinks than for food. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. It's like a drink costs you, boom, 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 boom. You got a drink, $14, $20. What? It's
Oh no, I will never
those
get past
go
that one.
bad first.
That one is the one that, like, I mean, I've gone places where like $21 for a drink. I'm like, but it's juice and booze. I don't
Yeah.
understand. I don't get it. I mean, but yes, I go, we can talk about that for days. But all right, so I just want to say, I came in here, like, I don't learn anything about anyone that I'm interviewing on purpose because I love being surprised. But boy, oh boy, did you guys come in with a being full on. You had so much stuff going that I'm like, the onion is the biggest onion I've ever peeled back. And we will definitely have to have another conversation because, you know, we have to sit there and go back to Guatemala. We have to sit there and talk more about the Hare Krishnas. We have to sit there and talk about your grandparents. We have to talk about your parents that we didn't even like dive more into, like, what are your parents thinking that's going on right now? Oh my God, there was just siblings. Do you guys have, you're only child, but both of you guys are only children. Both of you are only children. Oh my God, my head is spinning. Like literally for the first 30 minutes, my head was spinning. And I'm like, where do we go from here? But we literally, I took up a lot of your time, but I couldn't stop talking to you guys because you had so much to offer. And I really do appreciate it in every single way. This is definitely not, I tell everyone, this is never the last conversation because depending on what's happening around the world, I'll always just like bring you guys back in with other people that have been on the podcast as well. So one, thank you very much for just like being who you are, being transparent, making me laugh. Like, honestly, goodness, just making me laugh. Cannot wait for your sauce. You guys are funny. You guys, I can't wait till your kids are born. This is going to be great. This is going to be a good time. But I am going to end it for now by asking you, this is what I ask everyone that's doing the podcast. If you had a personal ask and a professional ask of anyone that's listening to you right now, what would be your personal ask and what would be your professional ask? Both of you guys have to answer the question. And that means I'm going to have 4 answers. Go.
All right. So I think my personal ask is just to be open-minded. You know, we've talked so much about how, like, not judging, you know, a book by its cover, not judging people, just being curious. And so if you do, you know, see someone on the train or walking down the sidewalk, just be curious, be open-minded. If you feel comfortable, have a conversation with a stranger, with someone you don't know, and just try and open yourself up a little bit to the world around you. We're all glued to our phones, and so that's something that I'm personally trying to do more of as well. Is just ensure that I stay open-minded, talk to strangers, and be curious. And I would say the same thing for my professional ask, which is give us a try. You know, try our hot sauces. You know, we are one of a few on a shelf, but give us a try and see what you think about our flavor combinations. So those are my asks.
And my personal ask is, you know, it's related to immigration and immigrants in this country. It's we should take a hard look at how we treat immigrants in this country, because it's an immigrant country and we're done with this. You know, it's been hundreds of years like this, and it's time to, you know, to acknowledge that, hey, this country is run basically by immigrants, and it's a huge workforce, and it's time to pay respect to that. You know, to start treating people like aliens. What kind of word is that for someone who is not around here? You know, that will be my personal ask, and my professional ask, it will be, yeah, try our hot sauce.
I should have said it should have been totally different, but I'm gonna go with it because you guys laughed together and you guys, it was funny. It was the greatest way to end. Oh my God. Thank you. Oh my God, Kamala, I love Kamala. You came in. You surprised me so much. I love it. Like, holy, like, do your coworkers even know about how much of a, I mean, you are literally, you know that like the Asian chocolates that have the little treats inside?
I don't think so.
Well, there's like a chocolate that's it's in Japan. It's like a big thing. They tried to bring it here, but then the kids would start choking on it. So it's like it's not PC here. But in Japan, it's like chocolate, and inside there's it's like a Cracker Jacks, but inside chocolate.
Okay.
So there's a little prize in every single piece of chocolate. And you, my friend, you're like a nice piece of chocolate, rich, nice, like good chocolate. I'm like, oh, good, I'm getting chocolate, and I open it. I'm like, what? There's more? What?
Thank you
No,
so
on-
much.
on-
It's a real pleasure.
A pleasure.
No, you guys are hysterical. Ricardo, now you can go get another cup of coffee. Go ahead. Go ahead. Clank away. Go ahead. Put it on the counter. Go ahead. No, thank you. Until next time, and have a wonderful, like, productive, like, I don't know, like, have a great and productive year.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you for the opportunity, and thank you for your time. It was a real pleasure speaking with you today.
It was fun, guys. Talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye.